Thank you, everybody. We are back in our normal session at 7:31 p.m. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance now, so everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our superintendent is unfortunately under the weather tonight. He sends his apologies. So Dr. Cullis will be performing presentations. Would you care to start now?
Twice a year, we do an annual violence and vandalism report as well as an HIV report, which is harassment, intimidation, bullying. So this is our annual from 2015-16. The numbers that you see, 73, 71, 75, and the district score is 73, is out of 78 points. So the district has to come up with a criteria for a variety of categories for the state, which include the number of trainings that you do, the number of incidents that you have, the education that you put in, character ed and so forth, and then you do a self-evaluation. They confer, decide if your self-evaluation is accurate, and then you get a school score, and those are the school scores. So it works out to be about 94% for the district. The substance abuse weapons were 2 reported cases, harassment, intimidation, bullying were 5 confirmed cases and 6 investigations. Vandalism, we had 0 incidents. Violence, we had 0 incidences. The report of suspensions of students with disabilities, other than violence and vandalism, were 4 cases. Actions were taken. The police were notified twice, in-school suspension once, and out-of-school suspension 3 times. The listing of our trainings. The trainings include every grade level that you have presenters to, teacher presentations, parent presentations, and so forth. So our total number of investigations were 6, and 5 were confirmed HIV. Any questions? See that. Any questions? Okay. We also do an annual and biannual review of our goals. Please, excuse me, I'm gonna get closer. This is really small, I can't see. So our strategic planning goal, so far we've started our strategic plan. Our first meeting we had a week ago, and we have a second and a third meeting planned. So at first, if any of you attended, you go through the state of the district, and then you start to develop some areas of goal planning, and the next 2 meetings will still continue with those particular goals for which direction we want the district to go. We also had a goal on communication improvement. We had a Twitter feed. We also started a district app, and we continued with our online communications with instant messaging. We wanted to increase opportunities for all students, so we were looking at ways that we could help with interventions, and a few things that we've done. One is that we're starting a homework help program, an off-site, which is at the Pure Place Community Center. That starts tomorrow, and we'll be offering tutoring from 3:30 to 4:30 for students who would like to attend there, K through 5. We also have trained 12 teachers in Orton-Gillingham, which is a multi-sensory reading, a very specific reading program, and they will be tutoring students after school as well. We are looking at adding more world languages for next year, so we're still in the investigation phase of that. We're at this point able to work the schedule around that and possibly add an additional level of language arts as well, so to have 3 levels of language arts instead of 2.
Sandy, this is all on the, it'll be on the website too.
It will. I'm sorry that I used it a little bit bigger screen.
Sandy?
Mhm.
Got it pulled up on the computer right there? Got it pulled up on here.
Oh, thank you. To expand the use of technology in the classroom. So we did a teacher needs assessment survey, and then we looked to see how we can be implementing Google Classroom. So right now, with Google Classroom, we have all of our 6th grade students with Chromebooks. We have many of our 5th grade students with Chromebooks, although they don't take them home. And then we implemented Google Classroom in the middle school and some of the elementary classrooms. So we've done quite a few Google trainings. We have several people that are Google certified as well. We've done professional development in the area. We are offering more professional development after school in our after school academy starting in February. So Mr. Forte's goals is to complete a 5-year strategic plan with community input, and that I mentioned we're working on that. Conduct community interest meetings with stakeholders. To conduct at least 6 articulation meetings with the central administration at the high school. So far we have already had 5 meetings with the high school. And conduct a minimum of 250 walkthroughs in the classrooms. And at this point, I think he said he was just about half done, so that'd be about 125. And there would be a 10% increase in higher order questioning from an assessment that we took in the fall, and then we're using the walkthrough data to determine that growth. My goals were to develop an after-school institute that I mentioned, the homework help at Pure Place Community Center, and we're going to be measuring our completion of homework rate and see if we can increase that by 25%. We're developing the Orton Gillingham program, which we currently have 11 teachers, started with 12. One went on maternity leave, so now we have 11 teachers that will be staying in that program. And we're increasing our math work problems in areas in grades 1 through 5, where we have hired a math coach that assists regularly with the grade level teams and is working with the middle school. She's also run several professional developments for that. We're adding world language program to include 2 levels of high school for Spanish and French for next year, so that students will be able to, most of the students will be able to take a full year of a foreign language before they get to the high school, and some students may be able to take 2 full years, on their choices. And then increase parent involvement in our PASS Academy, so we're going to be running some of our PASS Academy meetings online this year. An interactive session. We've also planned 2 sessions with the CPAC committee, one in the spring to be viewing the documentary called, it's the story of our Owen, what is his last name? Kevin, remember his last name?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we discussed it.
I know it, I remember what the name of that guy is.
No, CPAC stands for
Special Education Parent Advisory Committee.
So it's parents working with the district to identify district-wide needs in special education.
It's Owen Suscounty, sorry. And he's an adult student on the autistic spectrum, but really it's a lessons of hope, and it's really a powerful message from the parents. And Skrowski.
Thank you. My goal was to archive personnel, students, and financial records from paper copies into electronic form in an effort to save space and also to support the New Jersey Sustainable Jersey. The first step to accomplish this goal was to get certified from the New Jersey Department of Archive Retention Records. That took a while. This process started back in March of 2016, and we were finally certified December of 2016. Once that process was completed, I contacted different vendors, obtained quotes in order to obtain the best possible cost to archive many, many boxes that we had in storage in the Board of Education office building. I started working one department at a time. First with the student records, with CIT department, special ed department. We were able to identify which records we were able to keep versus the records that we could dispose. And the same thing with payroll, accounts payable, and finance. Once we were able to identify those records that could be shredded, disposed, I needed to get back authorization from the Department of New Jersey again, specifically stating which records will be disposed due to the retention record expiring. Again, I've been working also with the scanning company. They came in, picked up all these boxes, again, department by department, one department at a time. I also scheduled training for the office staff, not just to scan the current documents that we have in the board office storage space, but also to scan the current documents that we're working with. And they're doing a phenomenal job. Right now, we're not filing any more paper copies. Any documents that we have, we are uploading it to the cloud where we can easily retrieve them and be able to access them electronically. So at this point, if we have different scanner, we have 3 different scanners. One in the study child, CST, Study Special Education Department, accounts payable and finance share one scanner. So we constantly scanning current documents, again, in an effort to go paperless and have everything electronically. This goal was not just my goal, it was a team effort goal. I really have to thank Mr. Forte, of course, the office team, accounts payable, special ed department, the maintenance team department. They were a key player in this effort. They helped me move boxes, move cabinets, shelves, and again, I could not have done this without their support and their help. And I am very happy to say that by the end of this month, we will be 100% done with this project. And as of February 1st, we will no longer have to pay any rental fees for the storage. So this is my goal.
$10,000, $12,000? 10,000.
Where is it?
It's on my computer.
You have the computer up?
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll bring it in.
Bring it here. Plug it right in.
Very good, thank you both. Thank you for those presentations, and very nice work. We can move on to superintendent's comments. Do you have anything else, or we can skip that? That was them, no problem, nice and easy, okay. Do you have any of your own assistant superintendent's comments tonight, or can we skip that as well? Okay. Damaris, was that the extent of your business?
That was my comments.
All right, great, so we're moving right along, excellent. All right, at this time, we are going to open for any public comment. These are items, anything germane to the district. If you have anything you'd like to say at all, you can approach that table right there, sign your name and announce yourself, your name and your address. And we are open for public comment at 7:44 p.m. So again, this would be the time if you have any questions or concerns about anything relating to the district.
Sorry, Mr.
Sure.
Does this include the flexible attendance zone?
Yes, normally these are agenda items, but tonight, anything at all germane to the district, you can come up and
So will there be discussion separate to that?
there will, yes.
I'm going to show them a few things.
Yeah.
But there won't be time for public comment before we vote between our discussion and our voting. This is the
Yes,
time.
so this is.
This is the time to let us know what you're thinking before we vote.
Do you want to switch that? You know what, if you don't mind, what we'll do is, actually, Dr. Cullis is going to make that presentation now, and then we'll have the open public comment. That way you guys can see it first. Okay? Yep. Just bear with us a second.
No worries.
So, you don't have to.
Or it's just one slide?
One slide?
2 slides.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's just really slow. Thank you for your patience. Just come on. Once it comes up, then we just make it larger. Once the slide comes up.
The slide should pop up in a moment. But just to give you some background. Right now, between our two schools, which the slide will you can follow the numbers, but we have a discrepancy between the number of students in our Lakeview classes and our Riverview classes. The discrepancy can range from our lowest discrepancy is that Riverview has 1 more student than the other. And then we have an anomaly that in our 4th grade, we actually have 8 more students over at Lakeview than we do at Riverview in 4th grade. You see that? So our Lakeview, we have 104 students, which pans out to be 20.8 students per class. So that means 4 classes have 21 students and 1 has 20. Over at Riverview, we have 17.6. So 3 classes have 18 and 3 have 17. So there is a discrepancy of a few students, and it goes down through the grades. We've been hearing this from concerns from teachers, concerns from administration, from parents about this discrepancy, and it's not a large number. It's not enough that we would hire another teacher, nor do we have a space for another classroom at Lakeview. Every single classroom is taken up, so we could not add another class, even if we wanted to add another classroom. So we were looking at ways that we're brainstorming ways that we might be able to balance out the classrooms without creating a completely new line saying, okay, we don't know how many students are in that area, but if we draw a line, every student that's on this side of the line has to go to Lakeview and this line goes to Riverview. Because if we end up getting 20 students in a particular grade one year, we don't have room at Riverview to put a whole other class either. We really only need a handful of students, like about 5 or 6 students from an area that are on the border of Lakeview and Riverview to move over to Riverview. We would be looking at asking families as they're coming in that possibly do not have siblings, if they're already invested in going to Lakeview, they would continue to take their family to Lakeview. That maybe certain areas within the zone, which are closer to Riverview, and they do not have siblings, may be interested in just then taking the shorter path, a shorter bus ride over to Riverview. So the idea of creating a flex zone is exactly that, to give us flexibility of having people register for the schools and then be able to ask families, a few families that it would be reasonable for them to go over to Riverview, So we were looking at it being flexible in that we wouldn't be creating a hard line and saying, okay, all of these families you have to go. Because there are also other circumstances that we have to consider. Sometimes there are issues. I talked to a family today and they had daycare issues that they're going over to one side. So that would be a consideration that would say, that's probably not a good candidate to volunteer to go over to Riverview. So the flexibility gives us the chance to make decisions based on family situations rather than a hard line. That's the idea behind the flex zone. We just had a student move in and they moved in closer to Riverview. However, they would have been assigned to Lakeview, but they were new to the area, and so they said, yeah, we'll go over to Riverview. So they came over to Riverview. And that's a way that we, again, could look at the flex zone, and if the board made that decision, would have the ability to say, okay, these students as they either move in or as they register as kindergartners. What it would look like, what our gain would be, that it would take several years, but let's just say if we had 5 students, just given the sample of our kindergarten and first grade now, if we had 5 students that left Lakeview and were at Riverview, the difference would be half a student. I mean, that's the same. First grade, the same thing. If you took 5 students and moved them, then we'd be 0.2. I mean, that's really the same number of students. So we're trying to look within 1 to 2 student difference and not the larger discrepancies. What we also see is the mobility on the Riverview side of town tends to be a lot less. The side from Lakeview, because one, there's a larger population of people, but we also have more families that are moving into either rentals or short-term residencies. And so we happen to have a higher turnover at Lakeview than we do at Riverview. So during the year, even if we started out with a few less students per grade at Lakeview, it fills up. I mean, over Christmas, just coming in, we got several new students at Lakeview, and that just seems to be the way that it happens. And we have several years of data that kind of shows that. So the idea behind it is online. We're trying to do our registration. The online registration for kindergarten is just to give us an idea of how many kids do we have coming, so we can say, maybe this year they're exactly the same. And we just say, you're going to Lakeview and you're going to Riverview, and we don't have to make any changes. But if it comes out to be that we are really, it's a discrepancy like we've seen in the last couple of years, then we are going to be looking for those families who may be able to go over to Riverview. So now is a great time to take questions, and I'm glad everybody came out to ask them.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Dr. Cullis. Okay, I'm going to open up
Thank you for being patient with the slide.
I'm going to open up for public comment at this time. Again, same rule applies. Just sign in, announce your name and your address for the record.
I'll have to stand up to it.
All right, you don't have to stand up. That's okay.
That's awesome. Jeff Bertram, I live in Indian Lake over here, 39 Southwind Drive. One of the questions I have is, you presented it as a volunteer as new families move in. One of the big concerns coming from several of my friends in Indian Lake, I think you guys know we're almost cultish, very close. Laura knows, as she's in there, very close as a community. One of the big concerns we have is kind of breaking up that community. I think the volunteer way to go into new schools is great. Do you guys foresee the numbers getting more out of whack and pushing through that these volunteer zones, we'll call it, then become mandatory? Or is this fully a volunteer, I have a decision, yes or no, to go to which school I want to?
So, yeah, again, the original indication of this is that it will be volunteer largely. I can't tell you that it will be purely volunteer, and over time, we really don't have a great feel for the demographics. Obviously, people moving in, people moving out is kind of a moving target. So we are absolutely all very cognizant of the community issues about this, and we absolutely don't want to split kids up in a family and go into different schools. We absolutely foresee that not happening. But over time, yeah, there could be times where we make the decision to have a child or a new person moving into the family into Denville going to Riverview, say, where they normally would have been a Lakeview kid. Over time, we absolutely could see that happening, and nobody can promise you that wouldn't happen.
So is that part of the vote this evening then, that the vote is for what's being put out to the public as a flexible volunteer program, but the school board could still make the decision to say, it's not really flexible, you have to go to this school?
Yes. I mean, it is up to the board at the end of the day to make a decision in terms of that best line, or that, what is best for all the students. So yes, absolutely.
So that's part of the vote that is tonight. How do we, I don't think that the public's aware of that, because as it's been presented, it's volunteer, it's flexible, and we're going to vote on it tonight, where we're saying it's volunteer, it's flexible. We're going to ask new people to come in to say, new kindergarten, new family moves into the town, first grade, they think it's great, yeah, I'll go to Riverview, no problem. Now, all their neighbors around them are going to Lakeview, and there wants to be a change, right? So we're presenting it kind of as a flexible volunteer thing, but from what you're explaining, it's really not. We're going to ask, but we're going to kind of say, hey, thanks for playing, but you do have to go to this school. So I don't think it's been presented appropriately to the public, which is one problem. And then the second problem is that we can address. I think we can address pretty easily. Is I move into town, I don't know anything about the town, and then I figure out that my neighbors to my right, my neighbors to my left, and my neighbors across the street, all of their kids go to the school that I chose not to because I didn't know any different, and I have the school board asking me to do something, and I want to be a good citizen, so I go do it. Are there avenues for that child to switch back to the school that they would go with their neighbor?
It's been discussed specifically. They're switching back. I don't
I don't foresee such a significant increase in population that we would demand that people, I mean, it would have to be large. It'd have to be like 20 students, and now we have nowhere to put the students at Lakeview. That's the only circumstance I can see that we ask, we were demanding that we have to because we had nowhere else to put them. At this point, I went through just the 52 students that have registered for kindergarten so far, and just looked and said, okay, which areas? And I already found like 2 that were really close to the border that I would probably ask that were not on the same streets of other students that had registered. Like I noticed that there was kind of a cluster of students. I probably wouldn't look at the cluster of students because that would be a larger number than we'd be looking at. And then there were a few students that were right on the same, like one side of the street already goes to Riverview and the other side of the street goes to Lakeview. So I'm like, okay, those could be potentially 2 students. And it may not be exactly 5. What if we found 4? If we had 3, it would be we'd be already ahead of the game than we would otherwise. So to answer your concern, yes, I think the board would have that position, but I can't imagine that they would invoke that unless it was so significant that our classes would have to be, 35 a class or something like that, which then we have bigger issues.
But there is an avenue to do so. It is what we're saying, right?
Yes,
Okay.
if that became so drastic, then we would have the ability to do that.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You got most of it. First,
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, Kevin Barecki, also in Indian Lake, East Shore. And thank you for your comments to the question tonight. I guess the only follow-up question I have to Jeff is around what the methodology would be for how you might determine which students are at the top of the either volunteer or forcibly volunteer list, or whatever we're going to call it.
We're first looking, of course, at programs and students. So if there's a program that's at Lakeview that we don't have at Riverview, they will go to whichever school has that program. And then, of course, siblings, and then we'll look at volunteers. If we get past volunteers and we still looks like we really need some students, then we would look at location closest to Riverview, especially if they're already on our bus line that we have, because we do have students that are already in a certain area. The Essen Lake community, those students attend, so there's a couple of streets there. And then there's some streets over behind the schoolhouse, the old schoolhouse, in that direction, that we already have a bus that goes there. So that's, we want to look at what's feasible for the community, and certainly wouldn't want to create an isolation situation for a student where they're the only ones on the bus going to that community.
And regarding buses and traffic and everything like that, the students proposed or on the zone are potentially ones where bus routes are already in existence, or let's involve new bus routes for the schools?
That is correct. I did notice kind of a natural break between on one side of 53, and then we had some students on the side on 53 that's closest to that schoolhouse, the other side of Acme, versus the students on the lake side of Acme. I don't know what direction that is. But that 53 is kind of a natural break, but currently students on both sides of 53 down there go to Lakeview.
And my last question, what's the timeline from which, assuming the measure passes and carries, a student will be notified of which school they'll be going to?
And as soon as the board makes a decision, the signups are ready for both Riverview and Lakeview. For about 98% of those families will already be told which school to go ahead and register at, and registration takes place the week of February 21st. Those families that are in that flex zone, if they have siblings, we will already go ahead and sign them to the school where their siblings are, and then those handful of students that I have recognized that don't have siblings and are in certain areas, I will contact them and see where they're at, where their thinking is for which school. So within this week, the registrations, confirmations will start going out. We would like this all by May, even the very last people registering, because people register up to August. So the people registered now, you're gonna know now, but people register all the way up until September 1st, first day of school. The first day of school, kids come in and register.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm Sarah Meyerhofer. I live in Berkshire Hills, so fortunately I'm not really affected by this new line, but I'm affected personally by some people that are with me because we all attend the same child care center. So that was one of the biggest concerns when this all came about. We're worried that we're going to be split up. We're worried that we rely on each other to transport each other's children to and from activities, and this is only going to grow as they move into elementary school. So starting kindergarten is a very big deal. It's a very big deal for all of us. So we're very emotional about this, and I think knowing what school our children are going to go to is a big deal to just be put to rest. And my big question was the time frame of this, as to if they should get the call that, okay, we're asking you if you're going to move, and their answer is no. Is it going to be then say, okay, you're safe, this is where you're going to go then, and it's over? Or is it going to be something that's going to go on, and we'll say, wait, well, hang in there, then you're in limbo until we get, more people that we find out if they're going to volunteer to move over to that school. So I think that's really my question. It kind of piggybacks on the time frame question, because it's a very emotional time, and we don't want to be kind of in limbo wondering, oh, are they going to get to go to school together? That's really my question, the time frame issue.
Those that are registering, we're going to start the confirmations right away, and I totally understand the concern in making sure that you can start to prepare your students for what school they're going to. And I think that if that was the situation, that a family came forward and said, this is a situation, we go to a certain daycare, and then they're not a likely candidate for volunteering. And so again, we're trying to avoid any decision where we're forcing families. I mean, if there's a reason for them to be at Lakeview, then we'll just take them out of the candidate pool.
And it would be done. It would be a done deal. They wouldn't be revisited at a later date based on other numbers.
The only thing that would possibly happen is if we got such a crazy registration, which, like I said, I don't anticipate that. But it's so crazy that all of a sudden we have 20, 30 more students than we anticipated coming, and they all in that zone. But that's kind of one of those outliers that I really don't think are going to happen.
And years down the road, we understand that could be something that is forced. We're forced to get to that point.
I think
do you foresee that happening for this upcoming school year?
I do not see it for this year. I think the idea of moving a few children over a 6-year period so that by the end we have 30 students who've moved from one location to the other is a reasonable amount. I know that the board in the past has had to change the line. I mean, that does happen where the township has had to change the line you can speak to that, a few times in the past because of the numbers just got so great at Lakeview or at Riverview. We don't foresee that from our demographic study, that it's going to be that large. It's just a small number, and so moving 30 over a few years could really help the numbers.
So just to reiterate, you do feel that once the registration process is in place, we've had the registration, that point it will be confirmed as to what school, and that should really realistically not change.
That's correct. We're trying to get everybody their confirmation before the February registration dates.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to follow up on a couple of things that came up as my two colleagues were speaking. You've mentioned demographic study a couple of times. I sit on the board for the local football team, the Blue Angels, sit on the board for the men's club for Indian Lake, and everything that we've been hearing is that school attendance over the past X amount of years is down in the 30-something%, right? So the demographic study that you're referencing, do you continue to see that trend come down over the next few years to hold at that 30-something percentile, and is that number accurate?
So, actually,
Say our resident
anyone would
experts.
like to chime in? So the demographic study is actually interesting because while we've seen a decrease in enrollment, one of the things you always have to realize too, as you see a decrease in enrollment, what you're not seeing is the increase in the utilization of our rooms. We have a lot increase in special education and resource rooms and things that basically take those rooms kind of in a different direction in terms of what they're being used for. So even though there have been less kids, it hasn't been such a significant decrease that we've been able to lose sections.
So, and then our demographic study generally has seen that continuing. We've seen the demographics kind of bottoming out and then slowly rising, possibly, especially in the Lakeview School. But the thing is, even where it is decreasing, we're not seeing enough to really get rid of a section, get rid of a section at a grade level. So for us, it's really about being flat. Now again, all of this is subject to, and that's why I started this conversation with, we can't promise you that things won't change in the future, because the town has a lot of development process, things that are going on now. There's COA things that are happening, and they can tell you a lot about that may kind of vastly change the game in terms of the population in Denville. So I always want to be cautious with you when we talk about those kinds of things. But in terms of what Sandy said tonight, in terms of the next year or two, what we're looking to do is very much about being an incremental change. Small changes around the edges to make a difference without having to redraw that line and kind of just move people wholesale. So that really was, the impetus behind this.
Just real quick to follow up with the demographic study, I just pulled it up. So we did a demographic study in December of 2015, or paid a company to do it. So the change in enrollment from 2010 to 2015, that 5-year period, showed just about a 10% decrease in population of the students. And the projection from 2015 to 2020 is about a 6% decrease. And remember that 6% is spread out amongst all the grades, so it's really not enough to reduce an entire class, but may slightly reduce class sizes across the board.
So that 6% is after the 10% drop, or?
That's correct, yeah, that's from 2015 to 2020. And when we looked at our comparison from the first year, from when we received this until we had the real data, which was this school year, it was correct. It was basically on the point, so we're projecting the same projection right now.
Then I'll just end up with, I would just like to see the board, possibly if this is rolled out, we need to make the public aware, and as it's rolled out and posted on the site or whatever else, to know that there is an opportunity, that it's not really a volunteer process. We need to make that clear to my neighbors and to people moving in. And I know it's going to potentially set off a firestorm, but I always think proper communication up front saves in the end. I asked the board if we could do something about that, as well as if there's an appeal/change process formally. To my colleagues back here, I know how scary it is to move into a new town, have kids starting school, and then something happens that you feel very strongly about, and when it's very difficult to find that information, it's extremely stressful. So if we, as we roll out this program, if we can have an appeals process, a change management process, something available for the public there, I think that would be very helpful.
Thanks. Thank you.
I would just like to let everyone know that the demographic report that Mr. Anderson referenced is on the website. You can find it if you want to look at it. I just put it in the search bar, demographic study, it came to it, or it's on the left-hand side, look under facilities. And I'm listening to what everybody said, and what Dr. Cullis referenced. I've been on the board 11 plus years. I think twice in my years, we've had to change the line. So when they first brought this to us, I really felt that a flexible zone is more fair, that people are aware from the get when you move in, this is the zone that it could happen, not like we've done twice in my 11 years, randomly redrew the line to capture those 5 kids we needed that year, and then obviously, not even a decade later, had to recarve it another way, again, as lines changed. So, you're right, always, we want to be communicating fully exactly what we're doing and get the communication out there, so thank you for coming and reiterating that point.
Just a quick couple comments. First of all, thank you for coming out. We do appreciate it, really. I think when the administration and the board looks at what options we have in front of us, I think that certainly everybody would agree that having smaller class sizes is better for our students. It's really important to us, all of us. Drawing the line is always difficult. Like Mrs. Lindsay just said, someone's always going to be affected, and the discussion was about, hey, if the line was here and then we just redraw the line, somebody who moved in doesn't even know that they're going to switch over schools a year before their child goes to kindergarten, which is difficult, which could happen now. We understand that. It's extremely difficult to predict the future. we have the demographic study for the whole town, but to understand, we're talking about 5 kids each year. So to understand where those 5 kids are gonna be in the town is almost impossible. Because one family moves out, another family moves in, that family doesn't have kids, or they have 5 kids. That's extremely difficult to kind of predict. And as you can see, it's difficult to predict because when you look at the class sizes, grade 4 has almost an 8-child difference, and grade 3 has the exact opposite, where actually there's less kids per class in Lakeview. So big shifts year to year can occasionally happen. And I don't know if we redo the line, I don't think so, those years we redo them. So that was the same line that happened to have a big shift. So how do you compensate for that? It's almost impossible instead of redrawing every single year. So with that in mind, 2 things. First of all, with communication, we appreciate you guys coming out. We record these so that they're online. I know there was some issues with the recording at the last meeting, it was difficulty here, but all of this information is online. We have a working session prior to that we discussed at the last meeting. We post all these documents, so all the draft policy revisions and everything are up there. Please don't hesitate to go on. If you have any questions about it, call the board office. They can point you in the right direction to find anything on our website or any help you need. We're all really town-oriented. We understand that changes are not easy. Many of our administrators are from town. Obviously, everyone on the board's from town. These are all taken very seriously. We appreciate your feedback, and we're trying to do what's best for all the students, but obviously your feedback helps us understand what you feel is best for your particular students and your families, so thank you.
And if you have any friends who are concerned and still have questions after this, they can always call me. I had some wonderful conversations with the families that did call me. It was great to hear their perspective and for me to really explain it, because sometimes they just have to hear exactly step by step if they're not here tonight.
Mrs. Wagner, did you want to make a comment?
So I think what I'm hearing mainly from the public, excuse me, I don't like this thing, is that they feel like they haven't had enough notice and they're not ready for the change, understandably, because this area, this flexible zoning that has been in place has always been one school, it's always been Lakeview. I understand there are areas in the district where, like Sandy was saying before, Dr. Collis was saying, there's one street, you're going to Lakeview, one street, you're going to Riverview. This area has never fallen under that. The way the policy is presented now, and I'm not sure if I'm doing this according to Robert's Rule of Order, so if I'm not, I apologize. I'm the new board member. Is it possible to change the wording to this policy so that this year it is voluntary only, and that going forward in the next school year, we would have a better opportunity to communicate with incoming parents into the district? Because we're talking about brand new parents to the district that this is affecting, right? So even though we've put it on our website, Mr. Forte has put it out on Twitter, it's been in the newspapers, these parents aren't necessarily interacting with the district because they don't have children in it yet, right? This is their eldest kid coming to the district. Is it possible then to reword the policy so that this year it's voluntary, and then next year, going forward, the parents will know this is the flexible zone. If you live here, if you move in here.
To answer your question, we can take that up when we get to the policy.
So do I have to go back over there? Do I have to go back?
We need you on the mic.
We need you on the mic, yes, if you're going to.
That was
Just say your name again.
I mean, to Laura's point, I don't think it's necessarily the biggest concern I have is, obviously, I don't know the parents who are going to be moving into the area now, right? I think the biggest concern, and from Kevin's concern, his children aren't in school yet. So although we're kind of, if it's going out on Twitter, if I have 2 and 3-year-old kids, I'm not following the superintendent of school on Twitter, right? I'm not, there's a article about, something happening in one of the elementary school, and I have 2 or 3-year-old kids. Not necessarily reading that because that doesn't fall into my realm of consciousness at that time. I'm too worried about surviving the day with the 2 and 3-year-olds running around, right? So to your point, I don't think it's just necessarily the people that are moving into town. I know several friends that we're kind of here representing also are the ones that have the 2 and 3-year-olds, and there was a big uptick in consciousness about this proposal just over the past week or two as it made its way around the Denville Facebook page, the Indian Lake Community Facebook page, as that there was a huge uptick. And I know you guys have done a tremendous effort to get all this information out here, but one of the challenges is you can't pay attention to everything. So I think now that it's out there, and I appreciate it, Laura, now that it's out there, I think there's a little bit more of misinformation out with the public. Now it's really been, Kevin, last 2 weeks, where people have really become conscious about this because you're not paying attention to things that don't affect you, right? Unfortunately, we're all busy and that's what we do. So I'd like to thank Laura for bringing that up, and I think that's a good suggestion of how we can possibly maybe phase this in and appease some of the fears. And I won't come back.
Thank you, Jeff, I appreciate that.
One just quick comment is if anybody has any suggestions, we are always trying to figure out ways to communicate better. It's kind of a little bit off topic, but Twitter, we're on the website, we do YouTube, we're trying to figure out a way to connect. So if you guys have suggestions, please send us an email because we're honestly and truly trying to figure out ways to communicate better. So offline, probably not right now, but if you want to shoot us an email, please let us know.
Actually, that was along the lines of my comment. Out there when you sign in, do we capture your email address? If you want to, I believe we're going to do a survey in the near future about how you want to be communicated with. So if before you leave, you add your email there, we could direct that survey, even though you're not in the schools and you're not reading our Friday folders and you're not on our Twitter feeds and we have a great new app. We'll give you a card, you can get the app on your phone. You could at least be captured and give us your feedback of how you'd like to be communicated with your soon-to-be part of our district. So yeah, it's one of our biggest struggles. And we try to never have, with policy, you put it on 1 month for first reading, that's 2 meetings usually, and then the next month for voting, which is another 2 meetings. We try very hard, and you'll hear board members, if you come more often or you listen to our YouTubes, say, we don't want something introduced that we're going to vote on without any time in between. But in busy lives, and you don't have a connection to the district, even 2 months is not enough time to get it up on the radar. So, but that's good feedback that it was heard through the Facebook pages.
If you want to come back up, Jeff, I'll stay all night. That's fine.
There are several of the board members that are on Facebook and have seen the comments, and I just want to say that the reason that we don't engage, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's the Open Public Meeting Act. And what that basically means is that we have to notify the public that we're going to have a meeting and discuss things in a public setting that people can be privy to. So that's why it's posted in the newspaper, and that's why it's here in a public setting. We see the posts, but we can't engage with the public on Facebook because it does not follow the rules set forth by the Public Meeting Act. So I just wanted to put that on the record that you're not being ignored on Facebook. It's not according to the policy that we can engage.
And generally, as a rule, if there's one of us that speaks, and generally that's the president of the board in terms of communicating. But we actually did see some of the postings on Facebook. We also don't like to necessarily have a heavy hand in terms of the public conversation. It sounded like there were some conversations going on. People were asking questions and getting information that seemed valid on the face of it. So, we don't have an official Facebook policy or Facebook presence at this point. It's something the district is talking about doing. That's one of the things Mike had said. We'd really like to get feedback because there's so many ways people like to be communicated with. It used to be a website. Now people don't have time for the website. It used to be email. Now people don't open their email. Maybe it's the app. So we're wrestling with these topics, in this as well. So, when we try to push out as much of our communication as we can, if you guys can tell us if it's getting through, that's certainly helpful to all of us. So. Okay. If that's it, anyone else at all? I don't want to shut this down early, but if there's any other public comment, if anyone would like to come up and speak, please come on up.
While she's signing in, I'm going to just say, we don't generally have one person who speaks for the board by our bylaws. We have only one person Mr. President, who speaks for the board.
All right, my name's Patty Bowe. I live in Sunset Trail in Denville, in the lake also. My only question is, you've been on the board, you said, for 11 years. And I don't know about anybody else, but have you ever had to take, like, any of the classrooms now and, like, kind of move them? Like, if they're in 4th grade, and they've gone to Lakeview till 4th grade. Have you ever had to move them over to Riverview? Because there's, like, right now you said there's more kids at Lakeview, like 8 more kids per class than there is at Riverview. Have you ever had to then, you know, in 4th grade, move them over to Riverview in the middle of a, you know, where they've gone to school for so many years?
To the best of my recollection, we have never done that in the 11 years I've been on the board. You think we have, Barb?
My next door neighbor moved from Riverview to Lakeview, but elected to stay at Riverview. So,
Geographically
we make
moved.
transportation arrangements, but, you know, if you move, you know.
I understand that, but like, all right, I've been in Indian Lake for a long time.
Okay, that's different. I know people that move from one side of town to the other side of town, and they move their
Wanted to
kids.
stay.
Well, and I know people that moved into the new school also, they moved. But
No, but I
we
was
as a
wondering,
district have not asked 4th graders to leave their home school and move. If their parents decided to move and they
Well, yeah, that's totally
changed,
different.
that's on the parents.
But I was just wondering, like, now you said there's a lot more people, a lot more kids in the 4th grade, but you've never had to have a chance of having to do that, like move them to a different school.
That fourth grade class has been, that discrepancy has been there since kindergarten, or 1st grade really, because they went to half
It's a
day.
bubble,
So
just
yes,
like
I mean, we've never said in 3rd grade, oh, well, now we want to fix it.
All right, I was
So
just wondering,
it's
it was
always
just
been
one
that
of
way.
those questions that was.
Yeah, like I said, this is a very town-oriented, people-oriented district. We're not trying to move people in the middle of their education and pull them out of a school they're in. And even when we, like Dr. Cullis said, even when we make these decisions, it's going to be based upon geography, talking to parents. I mean, it's a handful. We're not talking about a lot. This is going to be an individual decision and a conversation and trying to do what's right for the students altogether. I mean, we're not going to try to force a square peg into a round hole.
That was my only question.
Once you register, you're going to be there.
Dino, can I just ask
Yes,
something?
go
I'm just curious, of the people here, did any of you see the policy 5120? You can, like, search on that too, but to your point, like, if you want to read about what the process would be, you know, it spells out class sizes, efficiency, hardships, and I think maybe if you're new to this whole thing, that's what we do here, policy, so like it's worded very loosely to give the superintendent and the principal's discretion. But if you don't feel it's working, like that's why we're here, we could always add to it or make changes, like this is, I'm looking at the revisions, we changed it in March of 2016. It literally would list out the streets, like if you live south of this street, and we said, you know what, this is kind of restrictive, because there were people that may have been open to, you know, wanting to go to one or the other. So we're really hoping it's a volunteer thing and we get it close, it doesn't have to be exact. Did anybody actually read the policy? I'm just curious. We got one. Yes. We are trying to get that word out, but you know, we're trying to post them and the red line copies there, and you know, that's what we're really voting on tonight, whether to make the changes, you know, to create the flex zone.
And once one child is going to one school, like their siblings would always continue to go to that school?
Yes.
Yeah, that's in that policy, it particularly states that if you have a 2nd grader at Lakeview and you have a kindergartner coming in, your kindergartner will go to Lakeview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Nancy Whitty, 11 Shawnee Trail. I've lived in Denville in my entire life. I started out as a Riverview student, went to Main Street before Valley View was open. At that time, when lines changed, it was a choice. I mean, they completely changed the lines when I was in 4th grade, and because they had just opened Lakeview. And some children chose to leave Riverview, go to Lakeview. Some chose to go to Main Street, because Main Street also offered the lower schools. But everybody had a choice where they went at that point.
because it balanced out. When the biggest change came was when Lakeview was added onto, and they drew the line at basically Route 46. Anything south of 46 went to Lakeview, anything north of 46 went to Riverview. There were some children involved, and they did not have to move from schools. We've had children whose parents have moved to the other side, but their student was a 5th grader at Lakeview. They were allowed to stay at Lakeview. They did not have to come over. And we've had children switch over to Riverview from Lakeview due to problems with other children at Lakeview. They have said, okay, we'll bus you to Riverview. So there's so much flexibility, and they really do try. And I have to commend the board every time. They work very, very hard to make sure that families aren't disrupted, people aren't disrupted, and the idea of a voluntary circle there makes so much more sense than drawing a line and saying, okay, I know you've all gone to Lakeview, but now you're going to go to Riverview. At least there's a choice involved, and I think it's a minimal problem whenever you look at it, because they will look at all the different parts. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else?
I got one item.
Yeah.
When I joined the board many, many years ago, we were in the process of teeing up a middle school, a brand new middle school, because all our schools were severely overcrowded. We had many meetings, and a lot of parents were very vocal about the size of the classes and the lack of space in the classrooms. We're in the process now of phasing out trailers. We had to utilize trailers for classrooms at all the schools, and that was a problem with many parents. I've had parents in the Indian Lake area, ask me, well, why do I gotta go to Lakeview when I'm closer to Riverview? So there's some people, everybody's a little bit different. We've discussed this in committee as well as on the board. Everybody was very sensitive and very concerned about, disrupting the status quo right now. So when the policy was crafted, we wanted to make sure that kids stayed where they were. The families wanted that. And if you had a brand new sibling in the family, they were going to go to their appropriate school. So very concerned about disruption. Didn't want to do it strictly a voluntary basis. We had a lot of discussion on that. When I joined, the count of students around 2,200 and change, something like that, and now it's 1,600 and change. Okay, so we've had a tremendous drop of students. We still haven't fully integrated everybody back in the buildings. We did full-day kindergarten, and that ate up a lot of space. It was a good thing to do. It was the right thing to do. So we're working on integrating everybody back into school. They talked about utilizing the space properly that we have. The future, the demographics, that helps. But one of the big ugly gorillas in the room is COA, which Dino mentioned a little bit earlier. And there's the tract of land up there by Franklin Road, right by Route 10 there, where they had that ugly red house where the neighbors were complaining about the paint, the color and all of that's been torn down. But there's a developer that wants to develop that. I don't want anybody to get, alarmed. This could take many, many years to bring to some type of resolution. But, you could get to a situation where you're back to having overcrowded schools again. All right, and then you've got to decide what to do. You're going to put up trailers again. You're going to have a referendum for additions on the school, and it goes on and on. So sometimes the future is a little bit unpredictable. But when we did this policy, was to give the superintendents some flexibility, rather than having these rigid lines, and just making it volunteer. Somebody moves new into town, they have the option of where to go to school. So we appreciate you all coming in and bringing your viewpoints and your concerns. It's really important as we move forward with this initiative.
Very good, thank you. All right, if there's no one else, I'm going to close our public portion at 8:31. That was one of the longest that I've presided over.
Sorry.
No, it's good. We enjoy this. A lot of times we're talking to an empty room, so believe me, this is good. Into a camera in an empty room. All right, moving on. We're going to move on to old business. I'm sorry, 8:31. All right, Mr. Luber, would you care to move us through our old business items that we'll be voting on tonight?
Certainly. I would like to move the old business, which consists of 3 3 sections. Section A is the approving the reports of the treasurer of school monies and the board secretary from December 2016. Section B is the education reports, student enrollment, medical office, HIB report, and and approving the HIB EVRS presentation. That was the one that we just saw tonight. And the minutes from the work section, regular session, and executive session of December 12th of last year.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any comments or questions on this? You don't?
Oh, good. No, it's good.
One little, I don't think it's a big deal, but the Riverview enrollment is blank for December.
Dramatic reduction.
Yes. Well, now we've solved it. We've solved the problem. You can all go home.
I questioned that with Steve because I saw some blanks, but there's a final report here that has it for all the schools, but I guess each principal now compiles their own, student count.
There's a second report in.
The first report is for Lakeview, the second report is for Riverview, and there was a third report in there it is, for Valley View.
Yeah, but it's not all good of there, it's not all. Oh, it just doesn't have it for last year.
It doesn't have the December 2015 total enrollment. The teachers and the current teachers and totals for the school and the grade levels are on there.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice.
All right. If there are no objections to not having the 2015 on there,
Then we can just clean it up next week.
all right, anything else? Does anyone see anything else? Okay, if there's nothing else, roll call please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Lord?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
I abstain as I was not present.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Yes. All right, if there are no objections, I would like to move items under personnel. Items 1 through 10 as a block, and I draw your attention to the yellow addendum for items 1. We're adding S, T, U, and V, and items 2, item 2, we're adding E.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Cass. These are payouts on retirement, sick day, cash out, stipends for kindergarten registrations, participation in different academies. We are also approving a student from MHRD to observe at Riverview. We have several FMLA leave requests that we're approving tonight. Number 6, is there an issue? Okay.
Number 2 on the addendum is going to have to get changed to number 11, I believe, because we have a number 2.
It's numbered, it should be 10E.
2E. We're just adding E to it.
Oh, so it should be 10 then, not 2, because it's listed as 2.
Ah.
Thank you.
Okay, so make that change on the addendum. Thank you. Mr. Cass, do you accept that change?
Sure.
FMLA for the nurse at Lakeview. More FMLA requests, and we're approving Lori Klink, middle school teacher for FMLA. And a series of substitutes, hiring of substitutes and their per diem rate. And I think that's it. Any questions or comments?
Hold on just a second, we have to check something first.
Okay.
Maybe it's not here, maybe it's under the field trips. No, I just wanted to make a comment about, but I think it's under field trips, so it means a different presentation. Is this where we're doing field trips?
No, field trips was last time, I believe, right? Okay, so just to be clear, we're adding that from that addendum item E, Mary Manning, that's going to be 10E.
No, actually, I was looking for the science. Maybe the science, they're both Lakeview and Riverview are going to the same science. Yeah, that was talking about that first. All right, never mind.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to give you guys a minute in case I say anything. Everything all right?
I think we're good at this end.
Okay. Laura, you good? Okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay, moving on to policy.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Backing up to instruction program, Mrs. Lindsay.
Okay, I'd love to take us through this tonight, even though I'm not the chair. What does the chair say? You want me to take us through here?
Yeah, the
Just
chair.
feel free.
Okay, well, so tonight, without further ado, the curriculum committee would like you to vote on, the instruction and program committee, I correct myself. I'd like you to vote on motions 1 through 8 as a block. They include, the field trips request, which must be in the attached item that I'm thinking of. Workshops and expenses. The weeding log for the Valley View Library of books that will be discarded after they're offered up for the community to pick through. Discarding old electronics from Lakeview, and the board to approve a program of Morris Knowles to come down and visit Valley View to do a presentation on how to babysit. That the board approve high-impact youth training services to present a seminar on school safety and cyberbullying for grades 6 through 8. And to have a reading specialist and her master's candidate come and observe at Lakeview. And to have the board approve a gifted and talented student at Morris Knowles to observe at Lakeview School for the entire 2017-18 school year.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So my first comment, I believe, is part of this field trip list, where I read that this year Lakeview's Science Olympiad and Riverview's Culmination Science Olympiad, they will be on the same bus going to the same program. And I was very excited to see that, because all these years, both schools run a Science Olympiad program, and they both go and compete against students from other districts. And maybe it'll turn out that it's not good that we're going to go compete together, because then they're going to compete against each other. But this year they're going to get on the bus together, and they're going to be at the same competition competing, which I think is a wonderful thing. Now, I hesitate to ask Dr. Coles if you know, in all my years, I don't remember ever having a high school student come observe for a whole school year.
I think it's just a number of classes. I think they're just clearing for, she has to do a certain number of hours. And if you just do it for the year, it's however many hours that she comes down. Like, she doesn't come every day. It's 15 hours or something.
And it's because she's a gifted and talented student?
It's
I've never seen an agenda item read like this before.
Part of her program. I'm not sure why it says that.
No,
I'm aware.
I'm not as well versed in Morris Knowles' program, even though I should, because my kids are through the Denville K-8, and actually one of them's graduating college this year. But I know that they, yeah, I don't know this program, and I do know that they do a lot of job placement. I've worked at other sites where the kids come in, like work study and stuff, so this is a wonderful program.
Very good. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay, moving on to policy. Mr. Anderson, would you care to move our policy items this evening?
Sure. If there are no objections, I'd like to move item 1, which includes second reading and adoption for policy 5120, assignment of pupils, which we discussed earlier, as well as 8600 transportation.
I'll second.
I just want to make a note that I'm very excited that 8600 is taking off the approval of the board for bus routes that we approve every year. Big accomplishment of mine on the board.
Okay, so I hate to come late to the party, and this will sort of answer your earlier question. But before we tackle your question, in policy 8600, and as I say, I'm sorry that I didn't notice this in December, part of this policy, the last sentence in the third paragraph references a policy and regulation we no longer have. I think I went on the website, it's not in our policy list anymore. So I think we should strike that line from the policy. I'll read it to you. Such transportation shall be provided in accordance with policy and regulation number 8611, and unless somebody else can find it on there, subscription busing, which happened right before my time on the board, subscription busing, so that was 12 years ago. We no longer do subscription busing, so I'm sure the policy and regulation have been abolished, and I'm not sure we should continue to reference it here, and I apologize, Mr. Anderson. You've been talking about this policy for ages, and I never noticed that it was still in there.
Are there any discussion items additional on that? Because I'm okay with striking unless there's additional questions or concerns. I don't see anything on there that would restrict us from striking that line.
I just think it's like a red herring to send them off looking for something that doesn't exist. Oh no, I'm
Absolutely.
prepared to vote on this tonight. I just think the board should, and if it's, too quick to throw it on you, I just read the whole paragraph and see if it still makes sense. I thought it did without that line that throws you towards a policy that doesn't exist. And I guess for the community, I could read it out loud. You could see if it still makes sense. The board may decide to enter into a contract to provide transportation to and from school for public and non-public school pupils less than remote from their school, with the parent or legal guardian paying, actually the whole paragraph, the parent or legal guardian paying cost in accordance with NJSA 18A:39-1.3. Pupils will not be excluded from receiving these transportation services if it is determined that the parent legal guardian cannot pay the cost in accordance with NJSA 18A, which is the administrative code for everything we do here. Such transportation shall be provided in accordance with policy and regulation 8611, subscription busing. That was all in layman's term. If you live closer than 2 miles to the school, by administrative code in the state of New Jersey, districts don't have to provide transportation. We do, but there was a year, I'm going to say about 12 years ago, because it was right before I got on the board, or maybe it was my first year on the board. I can't quite remember, where a budget question failed back when the community voted on the budget and subscription busing was instituted to make up the budget gap. We don't do that anymore. So we don't ask people who live a half a mile from the school to pay us to pick up their kids by bus. So I don't know how we all didn't notice that.
I move we strike the offending sentence.
The sentence or the whole paragraph?
It would actually be a paragraph
I
in
think
this
it's the whole
case.
paragraph.
Because the sentence above it covers what we do. The board will provide transportation to and from school for public school pupils less than remote from their school in grades pre-K to 8. I mean, that's what we do. We provide it for everyone.
So the term less than remote is the 2 miles, I mean, that's defined somewhere? I mean,
Maybe in the regulation.
right.
Perhaps in that 8611 that we don't have anymore.
Well, yes.
Yes, you're correct. That is where it was just, and that's where the whole hazardous routes came in, and we worked with the police department. I mean, it was a big thing when we went to subscription busing, but we don't do that.
Right, so we don't have anyone pay us for busing under any circumstances at this point. Let's strike it.
Second.
So,
Mr. Anderson, do you take as a friendly amendment the removal of the whole third paragraph?
I am good with striking that entire paragraph, yes.
Okay, and I, as the second, am also good with striking the whole entire third paragraph.
Okay.
Okay, so now I need a clarification. If you're within the 2-mile mark and not in a hazardous route, does everyone just get busing or no?
everybody gets busing.
There may be a board member on the board here that lives around the corner from a school and gets his children bused to school.
Yes, there is.
Hence,
Superintendent's closer, actually, yeah.
it's the courtesy busing phrase that we bounce around. All right.
Well,
Yeah, I guess you could leave it, because the board may decide to enter into a contract.
then a future board can always add this language.
And then it would be publicly noticed to the
And notice, then
community
you would
that
go
it's
through the
happening.
process, and I'm more comfortable with that.
I am also.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else on 8600,
I have a comment about 5120, the assignment of pupils. We have previously seen a map that has the zone in question marked out, and I think at one point we have a list of streets. I think that should maybe be something that is a part of the policy. That way it's listed there and everybody can see exactly what it is they're getting into and what areas around them are going to be part of it and what areas won't be. I think that more information is always better, and I think the map along with the street name should be part of the policy.
is,
I would agree, unless there's some reason that we can't attach it. I thought when we originally discussed this, we were discussing, and I believe Mr. Forte's words were the street list was easier to comprehend than the map. Did you hold it up for everybody? It's like the weirdest shaped thing you've ever seen. What did we call it? Like a dinosaur or something?
Well, I think we may want to have somebody draw another map that had, if we decide we want to put the map on, I think we want to draw up another map that is a little more clear and doesn't try to follow the contours of the lakes and such, and rather just, instead of all the ins and outs, just draws curved lines that don't try to follow the contours.
If we want to add the street names, I'm fine with that. I think having a map makes it even more complicated. I mean, the street names are the street names. You can look and see if your street name is on this list or not on this list.
I agree, and I believe that was Mr. Forte's comment to us, that the street names were much more easy to understand than the map.
So, the street names.
The only thing I wanted to add was that when he was making his presentation, he did say he tried to make the map as accurate as possible, but that it's not 100% accurate. So the street names, I think, to add to the policy would be clear.
Yeah, and we have street names for like hazardous routes and stuff, so it's not unusual for us to add street names into a policy, I don't think so. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so now,
I believe we should.
I'm going to read in all these street names, just so we have them for the record, and then it'll be added to the policy. Algonquin Place, Augusta Trail, Beverly Road, Bunt Street, Cherokee Trail, Chestnut Hill Drive East, Chestnut Hill Drive West, Cliffside Trail, Comanche Trail, Cooks Road, Cottage Circle, Denville Ave, East Main Street, north of Prospect, East Shore Drive, Elm Street, Estlin Lake Road, Fernwood Trail, Fisher Trail, Forest Trail, Franklin Road, north of Bridge, I'm assuming that's a footbridge, Fraser Road.
It's not a footbridge, it's where Franklin Road crosses over the Indian Lake.
Okay. Fraser Road, Geraldine Court, Green Lane, Hall Ave, Highland Trail, Hilltop Trail, Hornbeck Road, Indian Spring Trail, Iroquois Trail, Kinsey Place, Legion Place, Lenape Trail, Longview Trail East, Longview Trail West, Maple Street, Maywood Avenue, Manaw Avenue, Mary Trail, North Shore Drive, Prospect Place, Richwood Place, Rikins Trail, Seminoe Trail, Shawnee Trail, Sequoia Trail, South Wind Drive, Sunset Trail, Thurmont Road, Tomahawk Trail, Vista Way, Walnut Avenue, Witten Place, Witt Avenue, Woodland Avenue, and Woodstone Road.
Thank you.
so you would offer a friendly amendment with the words that you would like to see in there. So before you do it, I mean, I think there's one or two ways you can do it. I've never done it in the policy before, but you could actually grandfather the clause for the school year 16-17, it's voluntary, and put it all in there so you don't have to revisit the policy next year. Or you could change the language, but then we'd have to remember to unvoluntary it. I think it's easier to just put it all in at once.
Anybody want to help me with some wording on that?
Yeah, I handed my copy out to the audience, so I need to see a copy to help.
Wait, before we amend, are we in agreement, like, friendly, because I don't think I want to cut his authority.
Mr. Anderson made a motion, and Mrs.
I think there's two different things we're talking about here. The street names, we've added.
Okay.
The second thing is, I think Mrs. Wagner's talking about adding in the wording for making it voluntary this year. So very specifically dictating that it's voluntary this year, as opposed to we could move students if we had to.
And I believe Barb's point is, don't go to the trouble if you don't have the support, but the problem is we can't,
Discuss it until there's a motion.
you can't discuss something that's not on the floor.
Well, the motion's
The motion, the amendment to the policy, though, Mrs. Wagner needs to make that on the floor before we can discuss it.
So I'm gonna,
So go ahead.
so I'm gonna propose a motion that the policy, as it states now, under attendance area, which is page 3, the last page of the policy, it currently reads, this policy authorizes the superintendent to create an area between Lakeview and Riverview that will be considered the flexible attendance zone. Residents in this section may be assigned to either Lakeview or Riverview in order to more efficiently balance the class size between the schools. I would like to recommend that it is added that this would be on a voluntary basis for the school year of 2017-2018 and would fall under the discretion of the superintendent going forward.
That makes sense, but now it's up to Mr. Anderson to accept.
So there's one of two ways to do this. The informal way, which Denville normally does, which is you offer it as a friendly amendment and Mr. Anderson and I either accept it or we don't. Or the formal way, especially if he's not willing to accept it, and you put an amendment on the floor, then we purely vote on the amendment and then you move on to vote on the whole thing.
And is that's up to me to decide, is that true?
It's sort of up to the way she offers it. If she offers it as a friendly amendment, then that goes first. If we're going to be hard and fast with the rules, and you can make that decision.
I'm going to put her amendment to the vote.
So that way we don't have to get the exact wording. We know this is the intent of it. And then if we accept it, then we'll get the exact wording in there.
Right. Agreed. But I think it's reasonable to do this one.
Can we ask Dr. Collis's professional opinion on the amendment?
Somebody has to second her.
I'll second it.
Okay. Now we can.
Let me just say that this is all discussion about Robert's Rule of Order and the policy of the meeting. It's not about the actual.
And you know what? I brought my cheat sheet for Robert's Rule of Order from my last delegates assembly with me last meeting, but I left it at home tonight, to know which supersedes which. It
I
seems,
don't think if you voted on anything, you can't discuss an amendment for something you haven't voted on yet. Because if
that's how we do it down at the delegates assembly. That's how you do it. I'm pretty sure in the pecking order, that's how it goes.
Amendments first, and then you go back and vote on the whole thing.
Because like, we had one where somebody made a motion to,
Because then the amendment can pass and the policy can fail.
But you're voting, you're not voting on whether to make the amendment a thing, you're voting on whether to make the amendment a part of the motion. What we're doing right now is we're discussing 5120 as a motion. What we're talking about now is amending the motion, not the actual policy.
okay, so how about to simplify it? And Damaris, please tell me if you
I
can.
personally believe that the superintendent should make the recommendation to make the amendment, and we should probably table this motion until
Okay, but the problem is he really, really needs this passed tonight. So, why don't we make it simple, and maybe it's not exactly Robert's rule, but why don't we do what Barb's intent is? That Ms. Wagner makes a motion. Would people be amenable to an amendment about making it voluntary this year and not in future years? And then we can vote that, and if people say they're willing to hear it, then, Mr. Anderson, your motion would then, we would wait for it to be added in.
I just want to make sure I understand this, okay? So we got, it's almost February. We have, 4 months left roughly of the school year. So anybody that moves into the Lakeview matrix right now
Steve asked him, would I go to Riverview or Lakeview? I say Lakeview, you go to Lakeview. I say Riverview goes to Riverview. I say it's voluntary. I just don't see Steve telling these people that move into Shorter Road or something like that and say, well, you gotta go to Riverview School. Or Landing Trail in that area. I mean, you know, it's just not gonna happen. You're not gonna get that many kids that come in over the next 4 months that are gonna upset the balance of the schools. And all the discussions we had with Steve, it was nobody's gonna have their arm twisted and make it mandatory. He's gonna force it, you know. Something crazy happens in the future, you know, the down in Trenton there, all of a sudden they're busing in kids from another town because they're overcrowded. Well then, you know, it probably would be voluntary, but you know, right now it's just not going to happen. Where he's going to demand that a new family or an existing family is going to be going to Riverview. So I just leave it as it is and pass it.
The way the policy is written right now, without any amendment, prior to even this revision being up here tonight, the existing policy as of this exact minute, Steve has the ability to do that already on a voluntary basis. So if that's the case, then we don't have to vote on it at all if the board feels, because we're voting on something that's not going to change anything until next school year. Now with that in mind, I would ask Dr. Cullis if she can give her opinion on what that means for the upcoming school year, because I think every intention was to have this ready for enrollment for the kids going into next school year.
But it's happening right
Yes.
now.
Yes,
That's why
exactly.
it's
That's why we
imperative
wanna
we
do it,
don't
we gotta do
wait.
it now.
Yeah,
And we've been talking about it for 2 months, so it's not, yeah,
I agree.
more than that, yeah.
But she hasn't been on the board.
Well, and that's absolutely true, and I haven't been on the board, but I think more to the point is that the public's here because despite the board's best intentions, they're not aware of the policy because they're not in the district yet. They're coming into the district. So instead of making a significant change to a location that's never had two potential elementary schools, they've always gone to one. And people are preparing their kids. I have neighbors that are telling their kids, you know, oh, you're going to Lakeview with my kid or whoever kid. They're already in discussion about it. So I think from the board's point of view, it's very early on because it's January and we're talking about September, but I think as the parents here tonight have expressed, this is an ongoing process that you're preparing your child for the year. So, and to help put the public on notice that this is something that is a problem and that the board is going to address, if we make it voluntary this year, they're going to tell their neighbors. They're going to know from now on going forward, because this is now a public issue that they're aware of, that it will be at the superintendent's discretion in the following years.
So my only concern about that, Laura, is, and one of the reasons I thought we would vote the amendment to really kind of hash it out, is that we're kicking the can down the road a bit. Next year, there's more than likely going to be some family or some child who doesn't know or doesn't find out. So I mean, there's always that issue. There's always that challenge. So I mean, we're putting that off a year in a way. That's my only concern about changing this. I mean, if we believe this is a good policy and we believe this is a good plan, then I think it's probably a good plan in its current state. I think the idea about it being voluntary doesn't necessarily change much about how we would implement it. And again, that's my personal feeling.
Okay, my only comment is, we heard Dr. Cullis speak before, and please shut me down or correct me. But in speaking with the community that was here tonight, she said, and she's heavily involved in this, that she wouldn't force a family this year.
That's correct.
So-
I mean, his intent is that, you know, we would look for families. My only concern, I mean, we definitely have to do this tonight, because I know everybody wants to know what school they're going to, and we want to tell tomorrow, is that if we say it's voluntary, am I going to get people? Like, if I just, because I'm not going to put out a survey saying, which school do you want? Because then that's going to get really confusing. I'm really going to just look at a few families that's even possible, and then talk to them individually and see which direction they want to go. That would be my only concern, is that I have to put something out and actually ask all 200 families which they want to do, because then it could be all crazy. I could have Lakeview people want to come to Riverview, and only the people in the flex zone even have the option. Because I can't move kids off the other side of 10 over to review, just because we don't have busing.
So I know you're new to the board, but I've worked with Sandy now for 4 years. I have faith and great trust in her. So if she's saying tonight she's not gonna force somebody, her word is good with me. So I'm willing to keep it as is and know that this year she's not gonna force anybody.
The only thing I want to just make the board aware of is that I've been in discussion with Steve about this since it was brought up at the last meeting between phone calls and emails, and I think he spoke with Dr. Cullis about it also. And when I spoke with him today, he said that this was something that we discussed about it being voluntary this year in the policy, and then going forward that it would be at the superintendent's discretion. He said that he felt comfortable with that. He just did not want it to be, as Mr. Capello was saying, kicked down the road, because it has been for some time. So I'm not trying to speak for him. I'm just trying to relay the conversation that we had today.
And my conversations with him, he feels the same. We intend that this year they would be voluntary. I just don't want to put out a voluntary request form. I guess that's my only concern with it. Other than that, I know what my intentions are, so if the board feels like a word is needed, I will follow that, and I will follow it whether it is not. And
So we formally amended this to add streets that didn't define.
Yes, the streets have been read in.
Okay.
They've been right and accepted. So,
I think I would prefer that we just include the streets and not make this year voluntary, just for the case that, I don't want to undermine the discretion that they have. But if we find there's issues like hardship issues, that is something that anytime, guys email, whatever, I do believe that 5 people will step up. I don't believe the discretion of the superintendent is
I have a question hanging on the floor, though, I believe. Do we, Travis?
in the middle of
No, I'm sorry, she made an amendment and it was seconded. So now it has to be, what?
No, she's saying there's a motion on the floor.
I think there's a motion on the floor that we're gonna have to deal with before we can vote on the as-is. I don't know how to deal with it, since you guys couldn't decide which was the order of voting on it.
Mr. Anderson originally moved, and you seconded for the original policy. Then we added this.
The friendly amendment was accepted by Mr. Anderson and I.
We're just dealing with the second friendly amendment that Mrs. Wagner suggested. We can just disregard.
at this point,
We haven't voted on that second amendment.
Well, I'm just saying, how do we deal with it? Do we vote first on the amendment, the non-friendly one?
We should vote first on the original amendment with the streaming, and then we can deal with the other one. That's just a votes.
Okay, so right now, the first vote that we're gonna have, to be clear, is on both policies for adoption. The first one striking the whole third paragraph.
Wait, is it the first one? No.
it's actually the second one.
The first one adding all the street names that Mr. Anderson read into the record, and the second one striking the whole third paragraph.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll vote on those two. Roll call, please.
Can I just ask one more? I'm sorry, I still don't, so we're voting on,
On the first friendly amendment to add the streaming
Okay.
policy for 3-1.
sorry, thank you.
And striking paragraph, yes.
Mr. Anderson? Sorry.
mean, I believe the simple thing to do is to vote down the second amendment. I believe you should vote on it first. Is that what it's saying?
It's not actually. It's not actually. There's not any. All right, let's go with our original one.
We're going to vote first on the first friendly amendment, and then we're going to vote on the second friendly amendment.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Lord?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay,
We vote on the second friendly amendment
so now this is,
to add the word voluntary.
all right, so now this is Mrs. Wagner's addition of the word voluntary
For this school year.
for the 2017-2018 school year.
Second.
Ready, got it, roll call.
Mr. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Cass?
No.
Mrs. DeLuna?
No.
Mrs. Lindsay?
No.
Mr. Lord?
No.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
No.
Motion did not pass.
Okay. So for everybody in the audience, we voted to include the list of street names, and we decided to keep the language as is that was put forward by our superintendent and assistant superintendent, with the assistant superintendent giving us her word that it will be voluntary this year and not to muck up the wording in the policy when he's not here to see what's going on. Is that a good summary?
That's perfect.
And the policy's online, if you want to look at it.
It doesn't have the street names yet, though, but it.
Yes, well, that'll be.
But it will soon.
That'll be added in. Okay. Okay, moving on to finance. All right, Mrs. DeLuna, take us home.
Okay, if there's no objection, I'd like to move under letter D, finance, items 1 through 3 as listed on your agenda. Item 1 are the checklists listed by number. Number 2, approve Summit Speech School to provide consultation services for student 2022-1356, not to exceed 4 sessions at a rate of $150 per session. And item 3, to donate or dispose of the following items no longer used to the district: some computer tables, some desks, and bulbs, tube covers, and recycling boxes. Do I have a second?
Have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cass?
Straightforward. We didn't meet as a finance committee.
Mrs. Lindsay, did you have a question about it? Did you get a check question answered today?
I did. It was a very large chair purchase.
This one chair purchase for all 3 schools.
Okay, not one, oh, the folding chair.
The folding chairs. I questioned hospitality. I didn't know what that was. We're not hospitable here. We don't let you come into law.
That's the name for the original company.
Yeah, I just didn't know what it meant on the bills list. So thank you for the answer this morning.
Okay, anyone else? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Yes?
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes, except I abstain on check number 1991.
Mr. Lord?
Abstain on 1, yes on 2 and 3.
Mrs. Wagner?
I abstain on 1 and yes on 2 and 3.
Mr. Cavello?
Yes. Okay, buildings and grounds, Mr. Cass.
I would like to move items 1 through 6 for a number of projects for buildings and grounds. Quick recap. Number 1, we have a donation by Honeywell Corporation for use of their facilities for our staff convocation in September of 2017. We also have a agreement with the Denville Township Schools of the County of Morris to proceed with the school facilities project consisting generally of a partial roof replacement, phase 2 at Valley View Middle School. And I point out to the public that's here, we've had a long process starting when I first came to the board, even before, of upgrading our roofs. We've had a lot of damage to the buildings over the years, construction of classroom activities at the gym when you get a rain like today. So it's really good to see these roofs continue to be repaired. That benefits everybody in the building. Number 3, we have continuing of our ad hoc security committee. Very important that we keep our schools secure. And we also have number 4, an agreement with the Housing Authority of Morris for use of the Pure Place Community Center for after-school tutoring. Number 5, we have a change order for Ecesso Engineering Company to do work at Lakeview School, the amount of $29,281. And number 6 is another proposed change for the SIA Engineering Company to do RTU work at Lakeview Elementary School in the amount of $29,281.25.
I'll second. Damaris, quick question on number 5 and 6. Those are the
Change orders?
change orders. Yeah. Is that are those the units that we're trying to bring in using the cranes that were going to be there for ESIP?
Correct.
Okay.
This units were not included as part of the ESIP project, and we would like to change them since the company will be already installing all the units. We would like to utilize them, so the cost will be drastically reduced. We are still working with the ESIP program, hopefully trying for them to pay for this project. That's why we, in the resolution states, either funded through maintenance reserve or the ESIP program. I'm still dealing with the attorneys and the ESIP people, just trying to resolve this.
And just for clarification for the public, ESIP is Energy Savings Initiative Program, I think it's called. It's a program throughout the district we were doing to, we've changed every light bulb to LED in all 3 buildings. We have added a lot of weather stripping and air conditioning units, heating units, controls for different boilers. All that is being funded through a program that we don't have any capital outlay for, that we pay for it over the savings and the energy over about a 5-year period, I believe. These are units that we're trying to get included on that program. If we don't get included, we need them replaced anyway. So if we do it while ESIP is there, the cranes are there to actually put these units onto the roof, so we'll have a significant savings on bringing cranes out. So Damaris and the team have been working on trying to get them included, and if not, at least getting a savings of the crane usage.
Only other thing is, as Mr. Cass pointed out, we've been recharging the security committee ad hoc every year. I don't have a problem doing that. There was some discussion at the last meeting about possibly making it a standing committee going forward. It's obviously something I don't see us ever getting away from or diminishing our focus on, so that's something I think we should continue to discuss. list. So I would be all for that.
I agree completely. I'm happy to vote for it tonight again, but I would like to see, it's a bylaw that would have to change, which doesn't fall on any one committee naturally. So if you would ask to have the bylaw put on some future agenda so we can start for first reading and
I'll discuss that. I'll discuss that with Superintendent. I think it's a good plan. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
I feel like the problem child tonight. Yes, and although there's no money involved with the motion one about letting us use the Honeywell Corporation for the staff convocation, it's a beautiful facility. It was a beautiful convocation this past school year. It is where my husband works, so I will abstain on motion one and yes on the rest.
Mr. Lord?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay. On to good of the cause. We have not met committees yet, I believe, so I'll take two committee reports. One item I'll mention from good of the cause is we had our first strategic planning meeting last week at Valley View School. It was very successful. We had over about 80, I think 80, 90 people come. And it was a great kickoff to that process. We have 2 more meetings. I encourage everyone from the public, if you can make it. It's a tremendous way of being involved and having a direct connection to what's going to happen in our schools over the next 5 years, both from a curriculum point of view, a facilities point of view, things we've talked about tonight. They all come into play in the strategic plan, so if you can be involved, I invite you to come out. I think our next meeting is February 7th. Am I right? 9th? February 9th? Okay. Again, it's on the district website. We have 2 meetings. The process is refining a series of goals that the group has come up with to what will eventually become our strategic plan. The 9th. Okay, great, thank you. The 9th.
So, to piggyback on that, the last one was open and as an open public meeting for the whole board to be at. The next one is not going to be noticed, so you need to make sure you have no more than 3 board members there. Do you know which 3 board members?
We don't have a phone answer yet, but.
I volunteer to not go.
Then, Mr. Louie, you'll be at the 3rd one then. No, we'll figure out. We have to figure out the 3.
Okay, I didn't know if while we were here, if we wanted to.
Volunteer?
I can,
Is that
My
what the
schedule's a
school
little-
boards recommended? I mean, because I feel like it's kind of publicized. If states are public.
Unless we advertise it as a board meeting, we can't all meet it.
To advertise it, the school board, they recommended the first strategic meeting, we advertised as a board meeting. The rest, it was to the discretion of the board.
I guess what I'm asking is, if more than 4 of us want to go, or 4 of us want to go, we should say so tonight, and then it could be publicly advertised.
I can advertise it either way, whether we don't have 4, then we'll have 4.
Well, what's our,
To know at least 4 will show up.
what's everyone's preference for the 7th, for the 9th? Right. People would like to come.
I know we have negotiations that week too. I mean, I think it was pretty good, the first meeting. Like, I hate to
Thank you very much. Thanks for
exclude
coming.
people who want to participate.
Mike, what's your?
I'm fine either way. I'm looking at my work schedule, and the 9th is tough, and the one after is tough too. But I mean, that's another question. If we are not going to have a quorum, then we shouldn't have a public meeting.
Laura,
We can't.
what's your?
I would like to attend.
Both, you think?
I think so.
I mean,
I think move quicker if you just, everybody can't make it, have the meeting, whoever can show up goes there, be somebody to run the meeting, and, keep it on schedule.
All right, we'll take this discussion offline.
Okay.
I can make the meeting.
Any other items?
Well, I have 2. The first one, I'm not exactly sure how to ask the question. and it's about the strategic planning, and I guess it's really a question for Mr. Forte, who isn't here tonight, so. I mean, we had board discussions back in December about an item regarding facility space issues that the board asked not to vote on then because we wanted to get feedback from the strategic planning committee. And yet, I don't see how it naturally fits into the agendas of the strategic planning committee since it wasn't brought up at the first meeting. We talked about our facilities and the spaces that we have that are, and I never remember the terminology.
Substandard.
Thank you. I'm so glad we get to share a brain here today. You know, we spoke about our substandard spaces throughout the district, and in committee, we had been presented several options of how we might tackle that issue. And then at one point, Mr. Forte wanted to put something on the agenda, and I can't remember now what it was, and the board as a whole unit said, no, we want to wait and get feedback from the community about how they'd like to see us deal with our space issues. Is that going to be more formally brought up in one of the future strategic planning meetings?
Well, now, I wrestled with this, and in my welcome comments, I did reference the space issue, because we also, I think, didn't want to feel like the board was putting its foot on the pedal, as it were, and putting something out there that we thought, was our plan. So, but we did talk about, I prefaced that in the discussion. I know in his state of the district, there was a bit of discussion about that, but it wasn't really detailed by any means. Is that your point? Is that it? And I'm not sure where that line is.
Well, and I agree. We refused to, and I can't exactly remember what the motion was. We refused to.
It was Ross Haber, the.
Oh, yes, it was, the motion was to approve an addition at Lakeview School. That's correct. That's what the phase one was that we refused to vote on December 12th. So, because we wanted to bring it to what is the meeting called? The strategic planning.
If I recall, I think the motion was to approve the funding mechanism.
Right, we moved them on.
And we still had the option of not having to do it, and we wanted some, and we did go over it in
yes, and we changed
presentation. He did review what the options were, and no decisions were made. And I'm sure as we move the strategic plan, these various committees with the public, as have our discussions, will come up with a public recommendation which option they would prefer.
Okay, well, that was my understanding too on December 12th when we changed it from an addition at Lakeview to address substandard space issues district-wide. That's what we changed the verbiage. And it's my recollection that the board was very adamant, exactly what Mr. Capello just said, that we didn't want to look like we as a board had already chose a plan because we haven't. But I didn't see any discussion of it at the first strategic planning meeting. Yes, you talked about the substandard spaces, and we're talking in depth tonight about the discrepancy in class sizes. But there was no, not in the committee that I sat in, not in any of the committee's reports that were all reported out and that you can see the full summary on our website. Did anybody say, well, I think we need an addition? I don't think you know to think that way. So, and when I saw the agenda for the next meeting of the strategic planning, it didn't look like it was going to naturally flow in that meeting either. So my question is, and like I said, unfortunately Mr. Forte is under the weather, not here to answer the question tonight, but I don't want to get to the end, and I'm happy to not go out another night at the strategic planning, but I'm not going to be happy if we get to the end of the strategic planning and we don't have community input to help guide our decision. So I think we have to be very clear that where we're inserting an actual discussion of this.
We probably certainly should have a part of a discussion at the upcoming meetings. I don't know if it's the next one or the one after. With the group I was with, we did talk about not the options specifically, but classroom size and the overcrowding of the classrooms was raised as an opportunity area, not a strength. And we had a very limited amount of time. In fact, I think everything ran longer than it should have. And there's only so much time to discuss these things. So it was a productive discussion that we had with the committee.
a lot of stuff was generalized. Wasn't a lot of time to drill down into discussing 4 or 5 options to address the, the classroom sizes and the lack of adequate space for different things. But in general, it was reviewed by the group that I was with. So I think it needs to be on the agenda and a drill down discussion to vet out each option that we've talked about so far and see where the public is on it.
I'm looking right now online at the outcomes of that, and every single group had it as a challenge or an opportunity. So I think we just need to make sure that as we're looking at solutions that, I don't know if Mr. Forte or somebody has the opportunity to present, I'm not sure what the format is for the next meeting, but I agree, if we just, there's definitely some options. I mean, I think we need to get some guidelines or some ideas of different options to get an idea whether people are interested or not interested in each of the options. So it's definitely something that came up, but I think now we got to get to the point of getting a little more meat into what the options are. Because people might say it's a problem to not have air conditioning in our schools, but we know it's not a possibility to put air conditioning in our schools. So just saying it's a challenge is one thing, and understanding what the options are is different.
So we can have that conversation with Steve, who's going to on that, and see what we can do in terms of getting that into the agenda in a way that makes sense. Again, I'm leery of coming out with too formal a plan, but at the same time, I understand that the public can't react to a blank page. So we need to give them something to look at and understand.
I think for the sake of transparency, we can't come out the other end of the strategic planning and then start talking about, is it an addition at Lakeview? Is it, I forget what the 3 options were, do nothing. And we had them with us for 3 meetings and we never brought it up specifically. I think that's doing the community a disservice.
Well, again, in our challenges, every group did talk about it. So in that broad challenges section, so I think you're right, but I think now in the second and third meeting, that's where we really start to winnow it down.
I don't know, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Dr. Culls, because I can't, this laptop doesn't agree with me tonight, and I can't find it on my phone, but I'm pretty sure Steve sent us, like, sort of what the meetings will look like, the next 2 meetings. And one of them is, we're going to come back together, and it's the second one that I'm less sure of, and the third one is we're going to start writing steps on how to achieve goals. So we're going to have to come to what goals we want to tackle. What is this strategic plan for where we want to be in 5 years, and give our administrative team markers that we want them to hit, and they're going to come up with steps of how to get there.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. However, I think the idea of the first meeting was to identify the strengths and the challenges and opportunities. It says, I am a little concerned that we have a whole lot, and I don't know if hopefully school boards will come back with, hey, these are the ones that came up in all the groups. In other words, these are the top challenges and the top strengths. Because the second meeting, it says a similar brainstorming process. We will identify our visions for the Denville Township School 5 years from now. That's a pretty broad statement.
Yeah.
So hopefully it comes a little bit more and says, okay, here are the top, and then I agree. I think we're going to have to be, in some certain areas, I think we can kind of leave it blank and let the public and the stakeholders give us a lot of feedback. But in this one, if you let them give all the feedback, they may not understand that, a full edition at Riverview could be a referendum, which, that would change people's minds on if they agreed or disagreed with it. I think we need to give a little more direction on that one specifically, just because that's something we as a board, I think, want to get specific feedback on.
Yeah, I would like to hear from the community. You must be able to have the document open in front of you that I read, but I can't pull up. It was in reading that it made me feel like, A, we're not all going to be there, so I could be one of the people not there. And then if we get to the end of the night and it never came up, I think we will have lost our opportunity because the third one is too late. That's my concern about A, not being there, and B, the way that agenda reads. Okay, so now I have one other good of the cause, much happier. I just would like to give a plug to the board for the Morris County School Board Association. Next meeting is February 8th I don't know, I feel like our next board meeting is after both strategic planning and this. Is that correct? Yeah, it's February 13th. So, Wednesday, February 8th, they will be meeting at Dover High School, and it's talking about how do you balance the First Amendment rights of your students and staff with ensuring a safe environment for all. And they always do more than one topic, and then they share good things in other districts. Once again, this will be a conflict for me, and I'm not sure if you named anyone to Morris County School Board since we can all go. This is Lakeview's PTA meeting night, which I missed this past month due to conflicts with the board. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to attend this or if I'll go to Lakeview's PTA, but it looks like a really good topic, and I just wanted to give a plug for it.
If I can make that meeting a little more complicated, Riverview's PTA meeting is also that night, and I am out of town, so if somebody can fill in for me, please just shoot me an email.
So it's Lakeview's PTA, Riverview's PTA, and New Jersey School Boards.
And negotiations.
So nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah, actually, so you might, yeah.
February 8th.
Wednesday, February 8th.
Well, I know where Barb, Don, and I will be, so.
I'm gonna go, yeah, we have negotiations at night, and then I got a meeting at 7:30. So the negotiations aren't on by like 7:30.
Hey Don, what's that thing in your hand? I've never seen that.
I can make either the Riverview PTA or the Morris County School Boards, because they're at the same time, right?
Yep.
I can fill in wherever you would need me to go.
And I'm available to make the other meeting, that Mr. Lord, wherever you choose.
Ladies first, you choose, I'll take the other one.
You guys can work it out offline, however, that's fine. Okay. Committee schedule, do we just want to talk about timing, or is that something we should talk about offline with Steve? Our committee scheduling, do we want to talk about it now?
I would imagine you need Steve.
I assumed he wanted to talk about nights and started to map some of that out. So
We should be having the February discussion.
So for the new board member, we used to meet the first week of the month because we didn't have the board meeting that week. And I think we met on Tuesday nights?
Generally, it was Tuesdays.
Steve is only available from 4:30 to 6:15 on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, well, that doesn't work because making it to whatever time we
The
were
other nights are
before.
good. The other nights are good.
In general, Mondays are better for me.
Is there any problem with Mondays in general? And Monday the 6th in this case?
So Mondays for me, I can't meet, I could meet after 7 easily, or I'd have to be done before 6 o'clock, which I can't actually get there in time to be done by 6 o'clock because I drive carpool, which is, I think, how I ended up in that horrible meeting time.
We'll take this discussion offline with Steve and get it in front of him. Okay.
One more good of the cause. I, as the town council liaison, I attended the 2 of the council meetings this month. They seem to have a lot this month. But the reorganization meeting, Mr. Chris Galinsky is once again town council president. Great reorganization meeting. Mayor Andes gave a state of the township address, which for the board, he did mention the ongoing litigation and legal issues with COA that they continue to work through. And also, just a side note, at the other council meeting I went to this month, 2 new Denville police officers were sworn in, as well as one was promoted to a sergeant, so that was exciting.
while we were sitting here, another opportunity popped in. The Pride is meeting on Tuesday, and I'm not going to be in town on Tuesday. It's right down the hall.
Which Tuesday? Tomorrow?
It's coming Tuesday. No, a week from tomorrow, the 31st. It's just basically all the different organizations. What do you did it, Mike? Like all the different groups get together at the community center.
I mean, I don't know if we have to talk about it on record, but I might be available. 7 o'clock. On the 31st.
And it says they're gonna pick, talk about the award. So there's an annual, here's the.
So Laura, why don't you, if you can work it out with her, go great. If not, let email the board and maybe someone else can pick it up. All right. If there's nothing else.
I moved to adjourn.
I moved to,
I'm going to open up for public comment. We're going to open for public comment one more time at 9:43 p.m. Same rules apply. If you have anything you'd like to say, just approach the table and sign in.
Just two quick things. Number one, Pride, they're electing the Volunteer of the Year and the Group Volunteer of the Year. That's what they'll be doing. And there will also be a council budget meeting going on at the same time, just so I can't be at the Pride this time. But then I just wanted to bring up about that first meeting that we had on the strategic planning. I think the groups did exactly what they were asked to do. I don't think their heads are anywhere except on doing what they can to improve everything. If they are asked to come up with certain goals to meet, why our classes are too big in some places, too small, they will sit down and do that. I think that because of the time constraints, I think every group stayed within what they needed to do without any other kind of interference. And I think as long as it's approached that way, that it's still what they're saying is going to count. I think it'll continue to go well. So I don't think you have to worry about anything except giving them direction.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, if there's no one else, I'll close public session at 9:45 p.m. We do not have need for an executive tonight, so I will take a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
second,
I'm sorry, who's the second?
Mrs. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mrs. Lindsay. All in favor? Yay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No abstention. Our meeting is closed at 9:45 p.m. Thank you.